We're going to talk about icy strait fishing in the Tlingit nation from Hoonah. Was quite an experience and a lot of teaching. It holds hands with our culture because the spiritual life of the fish.
Before saying, there was a lot of trolling. There were people did trolling in halibut. It wasn't commercial. You know, just it was a part of our lifestyle, putting away fish for winter.
If it wasn't for fishing, we wouldn't be here. Fish meant everything. You know, you think about it, you know, they got, you know, like I'm out Luknakadi, which is a coho. You know, that's part of the culture. You know, you got the sockeyes, you got the dog salmons, you know, clans that are named after fish. This culture wouldn't be here without the fish.
I was a kid, and I was trolling with George Katiti, and he told me to hold on to it, and while I was rowing, I was holding on to it. So he told me, if you got one, just let him have the slack and then pull on it. He hooked the fish in the mouth. Then I'll let you pull it in by yourself. I just a kid, and I was the only person who got a bite, and I done the thing that he told me. I pulled on it, and we got this fish.
But they trolled. Usually, Lincoln Gordon, he was really a troller. He'd sit on back and face forward and roll like that all day long. And they catch quite a bit of kings. A lot of fish in them days. Boy, I saw pictures of when I was all those seine boats out there. And there were a lot of double enders on there. Double enders were good because they just glide through the water. They don't have to back, you know, behind a square boat. You can see all that back currents in there. But there were lots of shipwrights, boat builders in town. Lonnie Houston had a boat. He had a shop, and they built these double enders. Harold Jones had a shop. He's the one that rebuilt, remodeled Alberta. And Silas Dalton further had a boat.
I could remember my dad was fishing with my Uncle George Dalton on a boat called Washington, and sometimes George would miss and my dad would run the boat. But my dad owned, later on, bought a boat from, I believe it was from George Dalton, which was called the Tlingit.
James Grant, I can remember in my childhood, when they first bought their boats. His boat was Alberta, my dad's boat was the Washington. And the others from Hoonah had their own boats, beautiful looking ships at those times.
And then later on they would move off to the Indian Island area. When they were sailing in this area, my Uncle George Dalton and my dad were fishing together at that time. And they only fish this area at slack tides because the tides are so ferocious, especially the bigger tides.
I was a skiff man, you know, ran the power skiff for Joe Wright for 12 years, and my brother-in-law, Johan, lived always in the skiff with me. I told him, we're going to be in trouble, I'm going to head for the rock. But before I could get to that rock, you know, that tide caught us, pulling us backwards. The whole seine went down. And the boats, other boats that were jockeying around, they seen what was happening. So a couple of them, Mary Joanne and the Mermaid, let their skiffs go, sent them over to help us, so they hooked onto us. So we had three power skiffs that we were hooked onto that were just keeping us from getting pulled under. The big boat, Karen Jean, he was trying to get to us, but there was no way he could, because the whole seine was under in the tide. And every time he tried to turn in to come to us, Karen Jean would almost flip over. And our seine was completely tore up. Took us from a lot of hours to get our seine back on board, and we took right off, started coming in. And everybody said, well, if you're lucky, we'll see you guys next week. 2 days we were back out there. Of course, we all see Joe only would hire only guys that knew how to work on seine, how to mend seine. So we were all really good at it and real quick. So by the end of the second day, everybody shocked to see us coming back out to the islands.
The experience of the crews that we had, and we tore 150 fathoms. But the experience of the crew, we had Al Horton, Scoway, Archie Brown, and George Mehta, myself. All those people were experienced on sewing seine. So we didn't have to tell anybody anything. We just put it all back. We had the whole thing back together, and by morning, tore up in the afternoon, and in the morning we were back out. That's the experience that was on. So that's what made the fishermen so good at it, because they had the experience. Archie Brown, he was a captain. He ended up being a captain of the Patricia May, which was then he changed it to Neck Queen. So old man Scoway, he was a crew, and Al Horton was a crew, and I learned a lot from those guys. I learned a lot. Probably mostly sewing seine I learned mostly my sewing seine by Archie Brown, Senior. He always made sure that he'd bring me over and show me what he was doing, and he was a good man.
A lot of those skippers ran about 2, 3, 4 different boats. I started in the 80s, I think. Glacier Bay and Cape Spencer. I used Indian Queen for halibut fishing, but the boat I ran was Progress. I used it for halibut fishing because Progress was a little bit small for me. I had 10,000 dogs. Almost sank that boat. That was here in Port Frederick. I got scared of Heist boat named Mary Joanne. I was changing the lights, and one of those steel steps broke loose, and I lost everything. Already fallen down. I had fast hands. Just by accident, I grabbed the rope, and I froze. I got to the ladder, and I couldn't move.
They didn't have all this here fancy stuff that they have today, like power box and all this. It was all pulled pretty much by hand, and they'd have possibly a little power boat with maybe a 6-horse or maybe a 12-horse, and on the boat would possibly be not much over 30 feet. That is the first ones. And then they had what they call a big seine skip alongside, and that's where the seine would be, in this seine skip. Now, there's no engine in the seine skip. All that was used for is the seine. Of course, the seines weren't as large as they are at this period. Didn't have to be, because there was a heck of a lot more fish. And they were pretty handy, too. You get up a creek with them, too, It didn't draw much water. Then the power started to come pretty soon, why we have what we have today. Lots of power, lots of expense, no fish. Not very many, anyway.
Back in the 40s is when they started improving by going into power skiff. It was William Johnson, Joe White, Jimmy Martin, Jimmy Marks, Willie Marks, George Dalton, who first developed the power skiff after 9-horse, and Frank O. Williams, John G. Fawcett. And it started to develop a little bit more and a little bit more. Now it's over 280 horse. Jimmy Diesels, Caterpillars.
Mrs. Welsh was the superintendent of Icy Strait Cannery. And my dad made a statement one day to her. Why can't we start a brand new vessel for our sailboat captains? And when Mrs. Welsh agreed and said, your production on salmon will quadruple itself. So what do you think about the names? And my dad told Mrs. Welsh, why don't we name him the Queen Fleet, named after you, and being so supportive of our Tlingit boat captains. So began the two brand new boats. One was for my dad, and the second boat that was built was for Joe Wright. Joe Wright named his boat Mermaid, and his second vessel was named Karen Jean.
Well, when my sister and I must have been about 9, 10, he'd say, can I name a boat after you? When I have it built, and we say, yeah, you can. But we never thought we'd see the day. We thought my grandpa would just talk. But he did. He had a boat built, and he named it Karen Jean.
The Vagabond Queen was built for my brother, Al James Martin, built by the Hanson brothers. When these boats were being built, it's during the war, World War II, and they hadn't come out with the power block yet. So you can see the turntable, it swung facing the bow of the boat, and it swung it from starboard side to port side to bring in the nets.
I think the main message is the people were real, they were like gladiators, the young men. They took care of the captain and they worked on gear. Well, the 6-day fishing, they came in, they fueled up, they got groceries, and then they had a dance. This was later at the Inby Hall. They'd have a dance with an orchestra, and by midnight they're going to the boat and heading out to the islands again. That was one day. That's the way they fished.
Joe White, George Dalton, William Johnson, Pete Fawcett, Frank Fawcett, and all of them, those great guns, they experimented. They met with each other. They experimented how to sew their seine. Different lead weight in each corners where it drifts in, and light weights over here maybe, over here, heavy weights towards the boat, something like that. They divided it up. And pretty soon when they get laundry fishing, that thing disappears completely out of sight. They don't see the net until they get on the other side. That's how brilliant those guys were.
I got challenged down in Puget Sound, Fidalgo Island Packing Company. The high liner from down there challenged me. I was running the St. Peter out of Seattle. I had Kelly, Harold McKinley, myself, all from Hoonah. Every one of us from Hoonah. We were going to add on 100 mesh to that, make it deeper. They challenged us. 1, 2, 3, go. Yeah, they weren't even halfway through when they were pulling our spag aboard. The fastest I ever see Kelly lace pointer. He knows how. There's no half mesh in there. They're all even. Just easy to go like mad. When we got through, we piled it real neat. Put the skiff aboard. Everything, they were still going at it. He come over to me, the captain. I told him, there's high liners in Hoonah can put me to shame with this. The workers over there, they're experts. We're just the lowest one, and we beat you.
My mother and a whole bunch of women, there were mothers too, down there at the cannery. They worked a full day from morning early 8 o'clock till noon. They came home, made lunch for the kids, ate lunch, and they went back to work. And they worked the full schedule, came home at 5, made dinner for the kids and ate, and they went back to work again for overtime. The woman, my mother was a slimer, and she would work. But during all that they were drying fish over the stoves. They'd bring home the tails and the tips that the canneries cut and throw overboard. Boy, those are the best parts of the fish. But they'd be drying that. And the women would bake cakes and pies, put them on the tenders, the cannery, and the tenders would take the cakes and pies and deliver them to the boats. They had to be super people.
What an exciting time we used to have. That is part of our life. Our fishing industry is a part of our life, part of our culture, our traditional way of living as indigenous people fighting for survival. That's how come those people, they studied the person, they put their technology together, and they were all-time great fishermen. I can name Ronnie Williams, I can name Franco Williams, I can name Will Belindov, Tony Mills, several others, who took the initiative of trying to learn and to be fast and know what to do in time of troubleshooting. And they learned, and they were great on deck. And the captain depended on those guys that knew what to do on deck. Buster Davis and Kelly Sinclair, they all grew up in Hoonah and turned out to be pretty good fishermen. I'm proud to say that they are good fishermen because they worked as a team. They worked as a team to win, and they did win. They left us something for us to talk about today. They left technology behind so that we can enjoy the life at Indian Island, which is a traditional fishery grounds for Hoonah people.
Well, there's a knowledge gained from fishing this area that was passed on from years of experience. And we took pride in that knowledge because you don't learn that overnight. And that knowledge just stayed with you as a heritage.
It's just like if you went to a gymnasium and start to feel yelling for your team. If William Johnson caught a lot of fish, Joe White used to stand on top of his bridge, go like this to William Johnson. If Jimmy Martin caught a lot of fish, William Johnson stand on top of that bridge. He's happy because they caught the fish. They all caught their fish and they were all high liners, not less than 100,000 fish in a season. Those were the great guns. And those before us, on the Raven side and the Eagle side, they all shared and shared alike.
But, our people were just go-getters. Don't hesitate, do it. That's the way that our people were. But I mentioned the iconic fishermen. They were great captains, real leaders. The ones that were out there that were leaders out there. And I think it was even noticeable in town. They were the leaders too, here. When they got up to speak, people listened, the captains. We had real beautiful boats, and nobody could compete with us. That's why they call us the $1 Million Fleet.